Welcome, everyone. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me well. I had to kind of mute here, change something on my settings. I'm not wearing my headphones. I feel like I'm missing something, an arm, a leg, something. Yes, I see thumbs up. I see smiley faces. Good. Welcome, everyone. Yeah, you already know the drill. I mean, there's a map that popped on your screen, and hovering over it will allow you the opportunity to stamp your location. So let us know where in the world you are tuning in from today. My name is Anna Maria. I am leading the community project here at Butter, which puts me in a really fortunate position to be able to observe and learn from awesome facilitators, innovation consultant strategists every single week. So how jealous are you of me? That's okay. I want to do a quick pulse check and see who here is in Butter for the very first time. So give me a thumbs up if this is your very first time. Okay, welcome. Yes, I see some thumbs up here. Welcome to Butter, everyone. I'm going to take you to a very, very brief product tour in a second, so you know what all the main commands are. The session is being recorded, so I do want to get that out of the way. We are very big on sharing these type of sessions with the world. We're sharing them with the Butter community, also with the on YouTube. I'm also going to pop a couple of relevant links for you in the chat and pin them as well. Oops, there we go. And pin them over there. You can check them later. And yes, as I promised, I am going to do a quick intro to Butter before we kick off with the session today. You've already discovered the emojis. I want you to head over to the react button and react with an emoji that describes your mood right now. How do you feel right now? Are you excellent, a party? Okay, I see some hugs, some heart size, some brains popping out. There we go. Beautiful. So feel free throughout the session, as we are going to have our conversation with Sunny and with Dana, to use those emojis. There are absolutely no boundaries. Just go crazy with them. This will show them that you're listening, and you can also give them pointers with the things you agree, you disagree, and so on. So don't be shy on using them. We've already discovered the chat. That is the chat icon on your left. It will open a window to your right. Interesting here, maybe you can drop us a line or react with a GIF that represents let's say something that inspired you lately. Find that GIF icon in the chat and pop those GIFs for us. Or is it GIFs? I don't know. Maybe it's GIFs. Got something to add? Raise your hand in the queue. So we are going to use the queue towards the end of the session Q&A, but throughout the session, you can actually pop your questions in the chat. I will moderate the chat, pin those messages for you, and we're going to bounce them back to our panelists, because today, hey, you get to bring your challenges to the table and to conversation and all your questions. And we get to pick this wonderful woman's brains for the next hour or so. Take your own private notes, that little pen icon. These are notes for your eyes only, and you can have them emailed right into your inbox after the session. We have a couple of hotkeys. If you press the M hotkey, it will unmute you. The same goes with V for video. And now I have a couple of warm-up questions before we open up the conversations here. And I thought I'm going to see if we can divide the room today. Who's with me? So there we go. We have a strongly agree to strongly disagree. How do we call it? A scale? Let's call it a scale. So this is an interactive flashcard. And the prompt for us today is, to be unique as a brand, you need to have a fancy niche. Do you strongly disagree, strongly agree, or are you somewhere on that continuum? Let's see. Plot those thoughts. Okay, so we're gravitating towards strongly disagree. We had Charlene, she was like the first one being like, I disagree. No, that's not correct. But then we also have Jen, who's kind of like, hey, I think a niche would be cool. Would one of you like to unmute and tell us a couple of words about your choice?
Yeah, I will.
Or Jen?
Yeah. I strongly disagree because I don't think it has to be something that's fancy. And I don't think you just need to have something that's unique and ownable and that resonates with the audience, not fancy. Fancy doesn't come into it, I don't think.
Right. Thank you so much for that. Jen, anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the word fancy also threw me off, but I do believe that niches can really help someone stand out and identify the right customer's problem to solve and therefore communicate with them really clearly.
Right. Give you a big brain reaction for that. Thank you so much. Next prompt. Just be yourself. You are unique and people will feel that when it comes to branding. So this is authenticity label all over. Tack, 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 tack. Do we strongly agree or do we strongly disagree? Okay, I like it. Strongly agree here. We have a lot of authenticity promoters or advocates. Carlos, I see you there. And Afzul, awesome. Two of my favorite community members here. Would you guys mind coming off mute and tell us why you've placed your icon where you did?
Sure. Yeah. No, I think that that uniqueness and the authenticity of being yourself comes through clearly in a session. I know I've done some sessions where I'm not too sure about what we're doing, right? And yeah, it has a different feel, at least for me, and I think the audience also winds up catching up on it.
All right, Afzul, would you place something else, some other thoughts in that balance?
No, I'm covered. I was actually undecided about this.
So that's it. I'm going to go the middle way, man. Perfect. That's great. Awesome. Thank you so much. All right. So it's time for Anna Maria to step out of the way and actually leave the woman you came to see step on the stage. But before that, I want to know, are you ready? And again, it's the stamps game. Let me know if you're ready for the session to kick it off. Perfect. Awesome. Thank you very much, everyone. All right, so let's kick it off. I am very, very happy and excited to welcome Sunny Bonnell with us today. Hello, Sunny. Welcome. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking.
Awesome. Now, those of you that don't know, Sunny is an evangelist and a beacon for unconventional business success. She's the co-author of the best-selling book, Rare Breed, a guide for success for the defiant, the dangerous, and different. Together with Ashley Hansberger, I hope I pronounced that correctly, Sunny co-founded Mother. It's a brand strategy firm that works directly with leaders of high-growth, category-defining companies to differentiate and drive impact through the lens of culture and brand. Sunny, thank you so much for accepting my invitation for the panel today. I am so excited to hear you speak on a topic that is so close to your expertise, but B, who you are as a person and your passions. I'm going to give you quickly the floor to maybe add something to that description. Tell us a bit more about yourself and what you stand for.
Well, that's a loaded question, isn't it? Where do I start?
Is it? I don't know.
That's a loaded question. I mean, I thought you did a really good job. No, I mean, you said everything that I would have said. You know, I mean, I'm an author and work with C-suite executives to help them do really big things in the world through the lens of culture, to help them realize outlandish visions and wrestle vision forward in a world that's trying to stop them. So, no easy feat, right? But the majority of my day is spent working with leaders primarily to, try to help them articulate the business vision that they have, and more importantly, how to drive that vision through the company and ultimately rally people around it. Because it's not enough to know why you do what you do and ultimately how you're going to do it, but you also have to understand who is going to help you lift that message, who's going to help you take that flag further. And so that's a good bit of what Motto does. So back to you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And then I am putting Dana in the spotlight as well. Hey, Dana. Dana is an old friend of ours here at Butter. She is the managing director of Publicover Co, who's a sales communication agency. She's also a design thinking expert that has worked previously with companies like NASA and Google and McKinsey. So all the big ones, including the Metropolitan Museum of Art, which I personally find that really, really, really cool. Fun fact, as a ghostwriter, she has written more than a dozen books. How awesome is that? Maybe you're reading books and you don't even know that are written by Dana, right? Now, when it comes to Publicover Co, they combine human-centered design with damn good writing for an ethical and customer-focused approach to sales. Dana, I'm so happy to have you with us today, and I can't wait to see all the little nuggets that you're going to throw into the room. Anything I've missed in your introduction? I know that you have a couple of fun facts. Fun facts, did you knew that I did that and that? Tell us one that I haven't added here.
Let's see. The two, I guess I was a skydiving instructor for a while, and that's skills that I use pretty much in my daily job. And it also helps you get really good at sales because you have to convince people to jump out of an airplane when they're standing at the door and looking down. And I'm also giving haunted historical ghost tours in my spare time, which is kind of a lifelong dream job. And I just decided to make it happen recently. So I'm really proud of that.
That sounds very fitting.
How crazy is that?
That's not surprising at all.
There we go. All right. So I still have something to add here because this is kind of a surprise still. Some folks know that, others don't. Curious to see who in the call knows. But we're launching this, what I call pretty cool community project, and we are calling this the Butter Experts Collective. And so Motto and Publicover Co are amongst the first agencies to join the Butter Experts Collective. I've seen Carlos here, Purple Sector is also there. Who are they? They are a group of hand-picked agencies that can partner with anyone, big, small companies, startups, enterprises, to solve the most wicked challenges around business and brand strategy, remote culture and collaboration, experience, product design, service design, etc. And so this session today, alongside future sessions that are to be released next, are first of the many exciting activities led by the Butter Experts Collective that are leading up to the Collab Fest in September 14 and 15th. So yes, we're planning a free 2-day virtual conferences that will focus on navigating the blueprint to thriving as a remote team and aims to give you inspiration and actionable ways to improve how you collaborate as a team. Now, as a thank you for you showing up here today, I'm going to drop a type form. This is not released yet, so we're still working on it. But if you leave your email in that type form, we'll make sure to add you to all of the good sessions that the experts are planning. All right. So now I think this dragged on quite enough, and I have a bunch of interesting questions that I brought with me today. I'm going to use them to kick us off, but remember, the session is for you, the ones attending. So feel free to use the chat and drop your questions for Sunny and Dana in there. I'm going to pin them. I'm going to moderate the chat and make sure that they are being brought into the conversation. So just to kick us started, ladies, there's a whole lot of pressure to be unique, outstanding, different in order to stand out. What does that even mean? Like, what is that? Is it a fancy logo? Is it like super flashy colors? What does it mean to be unique? And how can I find out what's unique about my brand? Like, where would I start?
That's a real rare breed question if you want to kick that off, because I feel like that captures what you do, Sunny, in such a cool way.
Well, I think what's really interesting is the majority of questions, the majority of people that reach out to us actually point to another brand and say, I want to be the next Apple. I want to be the next, Warby Parker. And the thing I try to sort of reset them around is, well, how can we be the next you? How can you be the next you? Because when you point to other brands and we try to be those other brands, there's a big gap between who we are and what we're striving for, right? And so I don't really believe in trying to be different for difference sake. I think if you force difference, you end up with indifference. And so I really try to encourage our clients to think about what does make you unique. And sometimes that can be your own leadership style. It can be the way that you have a unique angle. It can be things such as your own culture and the team that you surround yourself with. Every single company, no matter how big or small, whether it's a founder-led or it's made up of a diverse group of people, each of those companies have a unique DNA, a unique spirit. And it all starts with asking the right questions. What are our beliefs? What is our worldview? What are we fighting for? What are we fighting against? Difference has to start with an angle. And it's important, and Dana knows this because Dana is really good at being able to articulate this for a lot of companies, but it's first you have to have the point of view, and then you have to be able to communicate that point of view. And a lot of times that's where a lot of companies need the most help is first, they don't know who they are. They want to be somebody else. Number two, when they define who they are, they then have trouble articulating it. And then beyond articulation, then they have trouble getting buy-in around it because the communication from the visionary to the rest of the team becomes fragmented over time. The more people you add, the easier it is for that message to get diluted. So the real goal for anyone to be unique is first to be able to simplify it as if you're speaking to a four-year-old, and then be able to make sure that that message is has amplification and can be dialed in through your culture, your communications, and then ultimately your brand. So it's really about first defining the point of view and then being able to articulate that point of view. And Dana does that extraordinarily well.
Thank you. Yeah, I co-sign, double click all of that, everything you just said. To add to the communication piece, that's really where my business comes in, and we just make things super, super simple. And I have found that in industries where there's very little differentiation, for example, people selling workshops, people selling facilitation, people selling design sprints, they're all kind of saying the same things in the same way. And when we dig in and start to find those points of differentiation, and we find that no one's really delivering the exact same design sprint the exact same way. When we hone in on that differentiation just in the delivery and then the approach and then the methods and then even the niching in the industry and things like that, we find a new way to say things even just through that. And we even find that through simplifying it and by making the communications about the customer and what they need to hear to make a purchase decision versus you and what you feel you need to say to explain what you do. Once you make that step, everything becomes unique and becomes differentiated, even if you're selling the exact same thing as someone else.
Yeah, because you won't be able to sell it in the same way.
Right.
Your offer versus someone else's offer, your approach, your style, so many cofactors as part of that. And Dana's right about really digging in and trying to figure out, well, where are those points of difference? And then what can we extract from that team or that leader or that visionary that ultimately is their unique specialness, and everybody has it. That's the thing that I think is most complicated about this, is that actually everyone is unique, and it's about how you codify that.
Beautiful. Now, I wonder, hearing you talk, and I love absolutely that it feels that your experience, the expertise you're bringing kind of complements itself, and you're tackling or you're supporting different sides of the same problem or challenge, so to speak. And this leads me to the next question, which is related to the mistakes that you see sometimes the brands you're working with, your clients that are making. I think there's a lot of talk about branding. It's not something new around the block. It's been a wicked problem for many brands for many, many years. And I wonder if you could give us some examples of, the common mistakes that you see happening. And if you have any concrete tips that you're putting forward to your customers when it comes to those, I don't know, you should call mistakes, kinks, etc. Super keen to hear if you've
Where do we start?
Yeah, right.
Dana, you take it.
So I most often start with the elevator pitch, and that's kind of how you just sum yourself up really quickly. And what I find is people start their businesses with this one idea of what they do, and then as they add different values, as they approach different revenue streams, they add additional value, and they're adding those additional trigger words into their elevator pitch. So their elevator pitch becomes this Frankenstein's monster of everything they do, because they're worried if they leave anything out, they'll miss business, they'll miss an opportunity. And so one of the very first things we do is uncover what is the real value and what do people need to hear to work with you. And then you can sell them the other value. You don't have to give up being full service, but you do need to give up selling full service. And so we trim all those things down. And so instead of a Frankenstein's monster, you'd like, I don't know, an arm or something. And that is, I always go morbid.
You really do. It's a ghost tour is really weighing in on you.
You can't do it. It's Halloween
it's
all year long.
Everything you're doing.
So once you've simplified that and you help people kind of break up with the idea that they have to fit all those pieces of value into everything they say, it becomes a lot easier to talk about your business. It becomes a lot easier to sell what you're doing. It becomes a lot easier to create content. I mean, once you put the barricades up, you'd think it would get harder, but it actually gets easier. And so that's one of the, I would say, starting point mistakes that I just see just over and over again.
Yeah, that's good, Dana. I think for Motto specifically, one of the things, and I'll just bookend what you just said, the biggest thing that I see our clients or just potential companies make a mistake of is that they have something to sell, but they don't have something to say. And so it's kind of like walking up to the prettiest girl in the room and you see her from afar and you walk up to her, but you actually realize that there's nothing coming out of her mouth. She has nothing interesting to say. And that's really what a lot of companies are and tend to be. And it's why we have jobs, right? Is because when you're inside the jar, you cannot see yourself very clearly. So it requires sometimes people to come in and say, okay, let's strip this away. Let's pull this back. Let's try to understand what is the big idea. And we call it at Motto, the big idea worth rallying around, but what is the signature idea that you become famous for, that can ring down the halls, both virtually, both in person, both in your company and externally? What is that big idea that sits at the center of the heart of your business, and why should anyone care? And that big idea is often very motto-esque. In other words, it's usually short. It's certainly, a few words. It's impactful. It's aspirational. It's something that everyone in your company, both internally and externally, should understand. Again, what are we fighting for? What are we fighting against? That's usually where that big idea comes from. And it is really an internal directive for everything that the company does. And then what Dana's talking about, which is really smart, is she's able to take that big idea and often kind of the core components of a company and say, okay, you're basically throwing everything in the kitchen sink at this. Let's actually figure out what are the most important parts of the story and strip away anything that perhaps doesn't need to be in that short elevator statement, because that's all how you do it, right? But you have to sort of lead with something that get people to lean in and go, tell me more. So once you get people to tell you that they want you to tell them more, then you can start to litter in all the other stuff that you do, and this is how we do it, and this is who we work for, and this is blah, blah, blah. Then you kind of just like keep hitting it down the chain. But you have to have a core idea. And more importantly, you have to have something to say, not something just to sell.
And there's a huge difference between that rallying cry. That's the phrase that Motto uses a lot, and I really like that. That emotional, inspirational message, and then saying what it is you do. And a lot of people try to make those be the same thing. And it's like, no one's going to rally behind front to back end solution end B2B channel, multi-channel, omni-channel. Yeah, that's not a rallying cry.
We delight and tickle our users, which is scary in and of itself. The fact that you would even do that, isn't that an HR violation?
Only
but
if
it's so common. Right? Only if it's acted upon. But
Let's cut that out in the recording. I'm joking.
I usually get two.
Leave that in. Authenticity.
Leave it in.
That's right.
Yeah, leave it in.
Okay, thank you so much. I want to pause here for a little bit and give everyone in the room the opportunity to head over to the chat with already the juices that are flowing from all of the hot takes that have been shared. Pop your questions into the chat. I have plenty on my list, but it's not about me today. It's about you. So make them good. Okay, when you're in the painting, you can't see the picture, Peter says. Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think Sunny said when you're in the jar, you can't see the cookie. I don't know.
You can't see the label from inside the jar.
There we go.
That's it.
That's the metaphor.
It's true enough. Though. And then people like us, people who run agencies doing this thing, often need external support to do it for ourselves. I mean, even you're a well-known expert for doing something, and you still need external support because it's so hard to see it as you actually do.
Yeah. Yeah. We seek out all kinds of people to help us with things like that because we can brand anyone. We can help you with your culture. We can do it all day long, but we cannot do a landing page for $1 million for ourselves. It will never get done. We'll be stuck there forever.
Or better yet.
Oh, that's it.
It's so discouraging because you're like, I'm capable. I know I can do this. I do this for, the biggest brands on earth, right? I mean, we worked with some of the biggest brands on earth and like, we can just solve their problems all day long without any struggle. But, do it for yourself. You can forget it.
Right. It's the cobbler's children have no shoes, but also like the cobbler's children have no babysitter either. That's what it is. Yeah. Like no one's watching them.
Love it. So Beno has a question. Do we all need fancy hats to be successful at branding?
Is that a slight towards
towards your cool fancy hat?
I could have said fancy glasses also. I just put on.
Oh, Dana's got that in spades.
I do have a glasses wardrobe that's bigger than my shoe wardrobe.
I have a fedora wardrobe that is really, I need an intervention. Somebody needs to step in.
I've never seen your head without one though.
I know, it's crazy. There is a head under there, believe it or not.
You don't need one, but it helps. A fancy hat definitely helps. And then
you don't need one, but it helps. Sure.
Charlene has a great question. Charlene, do you want to get off mute and ask the question, or should I read it for you? Either, it's fine for me.
Yeah, okay. So the question is, how far should your brand positioning be influenced by the gap in the market and what your audience needs? Or should you just be looking at who you are, your advantages, and then branding from the inside out?
Take that one, Dana.
I wonder if, so a gap in the market is one way to create a business. You see an opportunity, you see a problem, you can fill that. But I don't think a gap in the market is required to build a successful and distinctive brand. I think there's so many companies doing the exact same thing in pretty much exact same ways. You look at what DoorDash and Uber Eats, because I'm trying to think of like examples everybody would know culturally, but they're doing about the same thing in about the same way, but they're executing a bit differently. And I think there's room for all of that. I don't think you're going to have this, what is it, like the blue ocean opportunity or whatever it is, and have to come up with something. So if you find a gap in the market, I've seen a lot of times where we work with startups who are pursuing a gap in the market, and they find that there's a gap there for a reason. And maybe it's an opportunity that no one's thought of before, but chances are, it's also possible that it's not. So I'm not sure how important that is to the overall brand strategy, but it's definitely going to influence it if that's what you're trying to fill. If you say, hey, are you tired of opening Outlook and not being able to click on your Teams? Here's the solution. There's a gap in the market. Here's the solution. And it's a very direct communication. But that's, I don't know, 3 different ideas crammed into one reply.
Yeah, and I think
Okay,
you
thank
also
you.
can close the gap with personality too. So you used a great example there of 2 companies that are running things very similar. I mean, look at I use this example, but look at Dollar Shave Club and Harry's, right? They both sell razors, but they sell them in 2 very different ways to 2 different types of men. So I think that understanding that and figuring out where you fill that or add or contribute to that is the question and the answer.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we've got Carlos with a question lined up in the chat. Carlos, do you want to take it away?
Sure. And yeah, bear with me if this one's doesn't make much sense. I'm trying to understand how to balance, like a lot of these things that we say we do wind up being quite grandiose. Like it's like, we can come and change your culture. And it's like, I just listened to 27 podcasts that promise the same thing. Like they seem like unattainable goals. So how do you like balance these really big things with the practicality of no, like really we do this stuff. We can move that needle. We can make a difference. How do you find that balance? I think that's where I hesitate a lot with like those big things that we know are possible, but almost feel like we can't believe it ourselves. But we can do this. We actually can help you.
Are you thinking about your offer as you going to help companies change their culture?
Yeah. Yes. Or, insert change their culture or change their, how they work, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah.
Well, there's 2 parts to that. One part is the transformation aspect that you're giving to the client, right? So you're changing their culture in order to do what or solve what. So that's part 1. But then the latter part of the question was really about change management, which is, 2 totally different things, right? You have to understand where you are in the journey of that. Are you doing it all? Or are you coming in and helping them from a culture standpoint and from an employee value proposition? Are you helping them just define their purpose, vision, and values so that they can have a more clear and confident culture? Or are you actually then taking that and driving that down through the whole company, which ultimately ends up being change management, which is a different skill set altogether, right? Most companies can't do all of that. They kind of plug in at certain points, right? So I think what you're offering is the result, which is this: by hiring me, you will change your culture, and you will change your culture in these important ways, because that's all they care about.
Mm-hmm.
But you start with like, well, what am I solving for? What is the problem with the culture to begin with? Right? Then you can start to say, well, here's how my solution will help you tackle this, this, and this. And then if that's not something that you can offer or that you don't do, then you can say, I can refer you to these people, or this is who you'd be looking for around this particular problem. This is where I can help you. Or this is where my offer starts and stops. And then here's what you might need to pick up with after I get done, but it's sort of saying like, what is the transformation that they need? What is the migraine that they're having? And how does your solution solve for that? And then you can figure out where that offer starts and stops, So hopefully that helps you a bit.
Yeah, I totally agree with what Sunny said. Would add here, she was talking about like the migraine and what are they experiencing, and that language is going to resonate with them. But more so if you're talking about like, we will change your culture to do what is what Sunny said. And I think even further, like what's the outcome of that?
Right.
And sell them that outcome, because what you're not selling them a changed culture. You're selling them that result of the changed culture. Like
right.
what Sunny was saying. And I think when you're making grandiose promises like that, and you're finding that maybe they sound impossible or impractical, scope them down, make them realistic, show them what a changed culture looks like. Does it look like people wanting to hang out after hours, or, willing volunteers for XYZ? I mean, I can't really think about it right now, but whatever you can think of that's smaller. So instead of saying like this broad thing, make it practical and real.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah, because there's two competitive advantages for every company, and that's brand and culture. So right then and there, you've got somebody's ears, right? Because culture is the thing that everyone cares about right now. It's like one of the hottest topics of any organization at the moment. Number one, around retaining talent. Number one, creating a culture where people can thrive, having diversity of thought, being able to create the conditions to allow those people to thrive, being a strong leader, being an adaptable leader. There's so many angles to this, right? And what you have to kind of figure out is, where do you plug in on that journey, and how can you help them? To Dana's point, what is the result? What is the outcome? Sell them on that, and then reverse engineer back to that your offer, so that you can plug in at the right points in their journey and give them massive value. But I wouldn't bite the whole elephant at one time, because, to come in and say, we're going to fix your entire culture. Sometimes these things are unfixable. Like, you have a bad leader, you have a toxic culture. Like, there's no way that you and your team can fix that. What you can do is give them the tools and the thinking and the mindset to help them attack those problems in a different way, and hopefully solve for certain parts of what they're struggling with. But, you can't fix a toxic leader, and you can't fix a toxic culture.
Right. Yeah. No, I appreciate that. I think there's in where even something that I know I need to work on, and my partner and I talk about this often, is where we feel even those practical things sometimes even sound grandiose. Go like, oh yeah, sure, right? And it's like, wait, but we actually do help. We can't. So it's but finding those right words to communicate everything that you're saying, right? It is
Call Dana.
The outcomes.
Call Dana.
Invite on LinkedIn pending.
There you go.
No, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
You gave me a lot to think about. Thank you.
Sunny's going to get some commission here.
Oh yeah, you're going to send a referral?
I'm going to send a referral. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Did that answer your question? Awesome.
Thumbs up.
Good.
Okay.
All right.
Peter, I see you in the chat. Mind sharing the question, elaborating maybe a little bit on it as well?
Yeah, morning everyone. Great chat so far. This is something I'm dealing with, but I've dealt with in a long career in brand strategy and change management. And it's as simple, what does this group think? Does consensus kill creativity and what we're talking about, the ability to stand out? I'm working from Vancouver, and the general culture here is socialize ideas early. I'm working with large, university, academic, healthcare companies. And, my own feeling is, with due respect, their own people, you tend to average to the norm and take all the sharp edges off. And I spend my time turning into a personal coach to encourage the CEO to be more maverick, to use your term, Sonny, and give them the courage of the conviction to do brave things that actually involve upsetting people, not keeping everybody happy and turning into bland vanilla. So I've kind of led my own question here, but I'm really interested to know what other people think. And how do you combat it?
Dana, you want me to take that one, or you want to take that one?
That sounds like a you question.
How do we know each other so well? We're like, that's a you, that's a me. So that's a very loaded question as well. Thank you for that. I think
Sorry,
that,
Sonny.
I know. I love your thinking, Peter. Peter and I have been on panels before together, so I knew he was going to throw me one. So I do not believe that consensus is the right methodology, because here's why. I don't think consensus put somebody on the moon. I think consensus helped them agree to build a rocket. I think one of the things that you want to be thinking about is you need contention. You need diversity of thought. You need people challenging and saying, no, that's not the right way. But then you need somebody to step forward and go, I've heard you all, but we're going to disagree and commit. And that's really a Jeff Bezos thing. But there's a theory around Amazon that you disagree and commit. So you don't have to agree, but you have to commit to the greater cause. So at some point, somebody has to stop the unraveling and the indecision and the tugging and pulling. And what should we do? Should we go here? Should we go to the moon? Like, where should we go? Right. You have to be able to have someone sort of break that noise and go, this is the hill we're marching towards, and this is the flag that we're going to carry. Do you disagree and commit, or do you commit? So I don't think that you can have consensus. I don't think across a board of 25 executives that you're ever going to get everyone nodding their head yes. I've yet to see it happen. I think they will commit to certain initiatives. I think they will commit to certain pieces of that, but I don't think that you can always get harmony. You want a little bit of disharmony, to be honest. I'm in favor of it. I mean, at Motto's culture, like, we are very much one of candid feedback, constant feedback, and also disagreement. We continuously disagree with one another about it should be better. It can be greater this way. This is what the rocket should look like. This is how the rocket should function. All of those pieces, you want a little bit of that, but somebody has to kind of break the noise and obviously commit to a decision. You're just not going to get buy-in on that decision. I think that actually prevents really, really brave thinking and really courageous ambition. And it actually stifles really, really creative people.
Yeah. I thank you for that. And it's a great answer. I love your moon and rocket analogy. I've actually found that the best and the most exciting ideas, the ones that really challenge category conventions and scare people, polarize the teams. Literally on a halfway thing, it's like a political rally. Half of them are excited, half of them are scared, and that to me is an indicator of something really exciting and different.
Yeah.
It's right different. And I say, have the courage. I recognize what a great idea is, or what a rallying cry is. When you've got something like that, you've got something, and you nurture it, grow it. Unfortunately, the environments I work in here are so more. It's even difficult to kind of get a majority.
That's everywhere. That's everywhere. I mean, here's the thing, right? Like, if I told you that tomorrow your toaster would wink at you, you would go, all right, I can see that. But if I told you that tomorrow your toaster was going to wink at you on Mars, your mind would just go, what? Like, I can't understand it, right? And what that is that's innovation thinking. What happens is you stretch the mind. You're stretching the mind just enough, right? Where you can the audience goes, right, I can see that. Like, I can see my toaster winking at me, right? Like, it's feasible. But when you think about it winking at you on Mars, you just can't get there. You can't understand how tomorrow you would be there, right? And I think that's the reality of innovation and innovation teams and innovation thinking, is that there's only so much stretching that we can do. And when you stretch beyond the point where it's like fabric, right? If you stretch the fabric enough, it eventually breaks. But if you stretch it just enough, you know that it'll come right back. It might be a little bit different, but it'll come back to a form that you recognize. And that's the difference between innovation and non-innovation, is that you actually have to stretch the fabric and then break the fabric so that people understand that it's new and different. But you have to get them through a bit of the stretching, if you will, to use a really weird analogy.
Yeah.
That you're stretching them beyond their limitations, their own thinking. And so it's incredibly hard. I'm sure that people that sat around with Elon Musk when he was like, I'm going to have driving cars on Mars, by 2025, that people just think he's absolutely crazy. I will, and have no doubt that he will do it. So it's just the matter of, you've got a lot of people who just can't see it because it feels scary. It feels impossible. But you have to surround yourself. If perhaps the team does not have possibility thinkers, then you need to surround yourself with less impossible thinkers and more possibility. So you want people that actually see possibility, not boundaries. The people that see boundaries only hold you back because that's all they can see. They think of every reason it will not work. It won't work. It can't work. It can't possibly get there. And no, get them out of the circle. You need a little bit of that, but you need more of the possibility thinkers, because that's where you are able to stretch, and then they're not scared of the stretching.
Thank you so much. Great answer.
Don't be scared of the stretching. Take away.
Don't be scared of the stretching.
Don't be scared of the stretching.
Hashtag.
There we go. Anna, Anna Sofia Pino asks a very, very nice question. Anna, do you wanna read it out loud?
Sure. Thank you so much, Ana Maria, Sunny, and Dana, for this. It's amazing to be able to have these conversations and learn so much. So I know that you have worked with incredible brands, and I was wondering, like, if there was a project or something that you worked in that you were really excited or fulfilled, and what made that project feel like that for you? Just trying to
Dana.
I would say that the projects I've done for the bigger companies have probably had the least impact and been the least fulfilling. In a larger context, and big ships move very, very slowly. And for the small piece of innovation work that I've done when I was a design thinking consultant, it would make such a small difference. I did a design sprint at NASA, and no one else in that building knew why I was there, what I did, or saw the results of it. And there was nothing to push those results through. So while that's like a really cool thing to brag about at parties, it wasn't really fulfilling for me. I've gotten way more out of working with much, much, much smaller companies where the work that I do literally changes their lives. It makes them profitable. It makes them able to sell. They thought they were going to have to hire a salesperson, but no, they didn't know how to talk about their own thing. As far as the most fulfilling, I was running I was working on a digital product for a healthcare company. I can't say who it was. So it was an inhaler linked to an app for children, because children are notoriously terrible about using their inhalers when they need them. And so it was mild weather conditions and allergen conditions. And during the user testing and user research up front, we found, nobody uses these inhalers. With this gamification, with making it fun, with almost like Duolingo encourages you and sends you points and helps you, whatever, watching them want to use the inhaler and getting excited about being involved in that process was so, so, so cool. And just seeing how, research and going back and giving them what it was we saw they needed and watching that transformation was just really cool. So that was my biggest impact.
Yeah, that's cool, Dana. Yeah, I think that's so true, isn't it? Like, I used to dream out the window and be like, oh, if I could just one day work with Google. Well,
Yeah,
I've worked
totally.
with Google. I've worked with many of them. And I used to think that it would be really different. And the reality is it's not. It's in the smaller, more non-assuming things or unassuming things that you really have the most impact and the most transformation. Something that comes to mind was a company that we worked with at Motto, who had been around for about 25 years, and they were celebrating their 25th year anniversary, and their family-owned company, and father, son, and really interesting story, had been really successful, and they were just wanting to sort of sharpen their positioning and future-proof the company. And in the workshops that we did with them around leadership, they were like, who should we have in these workshops? And we were like, well, who's been with the company the longest? And who's been with the company the shortest? And so we were looking up and down sort of the leadership C-suite org chart. And I pointed to the pool guy and I said, how long's he been there? And they're like, oh, that's so-and-so. He's been here for like 25 years. They're like, he doesn't say anything. And I said, I want him in the workshop. And so they were like, but why? And I was like, you'll find out, you'll understand. And they were like, fine, whatever, whatever you guys want to do. And we were like, yeah, bring him in. So funny story, this guy, no one had ever asked him his opinion. He'd cleaned the pools for the whole company for 25 years. And in that meeting, he was the one that came up with the tagline. And it was so moving because he pulled me aside afterwards and he said, you saw me. And I thought that was just really, really moving because no one in the company, they disregarded his role. They disregarded that he had any opinion at all about the company and the way the company worked. And it was just such a learning moment for me because I was like, this is what leaders miss, is sometimes the person that's been on the company that nobody is more quiet or more reserved. You never think to ask, how do you see things? And they're brimming with ideas, just nobody asks. And it was just a huge moment for me in that moment to realize that everyone within the company does have important things to say. And it's our job to ask those questions, not by role or title or rank, but rather, what do you have to say? What can you contribute? Not where you sit on the totem pole.
You have to facilitate those conversations as well, because otherwise you're only getting the extroverts' answers. Loud people. Yeah.
The D's in the room.
The Dana's in the room. Those people will speak
Are you a
up.
D? Are you a D?
What's a D?
On the disc.
I've never done it.
You haven't? You should.
No. Okay. I'm sure.
Do it. Yeah.
Okay.
Has anybody taken the disc profile? Does anybody know what that is? You should. All right.
I'm totally going to do it. I know I'm like ENTP on Myers-Briggs.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know what that means.
Those are funny little tests, but yeah, they do reveal some things.
Cool. But yes, you're only going to hear the extroverts' opinions because they're the only ones who are willing to speak up and take the space when it's open. They'll speak in the holes. People who are maybe not so forward or bold or brave might need to be asked the question. And if you're not asking the question, you're just letting things happen organically, that brainstorm is going to be owned by the loudest people, not necessarily the smartest people. I mean, some of us are loud and smart, obviously, but yeah.
Of course they are.
We need a sound for that, I feel like.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
That was a good mic drop moment.
Much appreciated.
All right, we are approaching the end. Doesn't time fly when you're having fun? Thanks everyone for the awesome questions. And thanks Dana and Sunny for the thoughtful, inspiring, almost goosebumping. This is the thing.
Ooh.
I took so many notes, and so I'm pretty sure the other attendees have done the same. So I would like very much to collect those insights, like those tiny little things. Often brands have something to sell but nothing to say. So I'm very curious to see what notes have you took down, what were your takeaways, and to collect those, I'm opening up a poll. So please do paste them in or write them in. And what I want to know is, what is your takeaway from today's session? It can be a quote, it can be an insight, it can be an action, something you'd like to explore further. I'm very, very keen to, and I've got tons, so I'm just going to paste mine here as well.
Am I allowed to take the test?
Do
Put
you
your own notes?
Yes, put your own notes then. You're allowed to. So many different ways to approach. Oh, wow. So these are coming in. Awesome. You also have that tiny little heart that you can like heart answers that really, really resonate with you. So many different ways to approach brand and differentiations. How you can't brand yourself. Cookie jar. There we go. That's the cookie jar. Then mine, obviously, really good. The insights there. Really cool notes. The real goal is to simplify as you're speaking to a 4-year-old. This is kind of like, I feel, Jacob's favorite way of looking at things, right, Mosin? It's like Jacob is obsessed with explain it to me like I'm 5. There we have Mosin, include your teammates, colleagues, and give them a fair shot to be heard. What are you fighting for? What are you fighting against? Awesome. Cool hat or nice glasses. Benoit, do you have neither of them? No hat, no glasses. We need to do something.
No, it's just this.
Hey.
I gotta add to it.
You really have to like elevate that look. So many that I have to watch the recording to note them down. I was thinking about the same. Analogy, something to say, interact. Okay, lots of stuff. Culture booming its own specialized offering. Yes. Okay. Thanks, everyone. Thank you so much. Especially thanks to our 2 panelists today. And in true spirit of celebrating this as a party, I have enabled the soundboard for everyone. You are finding that under the React button. Go. Yes. Make it sound like loud.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for having me. Thanks, Dana.
Thank you
good
so
to
much.
see you.
Yeah, you as well.
All right.
Bye.
Take care.
Have a great rest of the day. Bye, everyone.